You're listening to ThunderQuack Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the ThunderQuack Podcast Network Spoilercast. This episode is going to be about Justice League, as we finally got a Justice League movie. And I think it's safe to say some people have waited almost their entire lives for a Justice League movie, and it's finally here. So we're going to talk about it, share our thoughts, what we liked, what we didn't like, and just, geek out about the movie. So my name is Tim from Star Wars: The Saga Continues podcast on the ThunderQuack Podcast Network. And joining me is Amanda Konkin from Quiver, the Green Arrow podcast. Amanda, welcome.
Hello. Hi.
And Andy from the Flash podcast. Andy, how's it going?
It's going well. I don't do anything useful on this network, so I'm just like I know I got tied along when Michael asked me like months ago to help out with stuff, and I'm like, so whenever I do like these roundtables like Spoilercast, I'm like, well, technically I don't do anything on ThunderQuack, so that's kind of awkward.
But you know what, Andy? It's because we don't do anything on DC TV Podcast Network, so it kind of
Well, you do. Well, you do Quiver. That's the thing. You guys do a podcast about DC, but for me, it's just like I'm just like here. I'm like, hi, I like to be part of the group. Thanks.
It's good. No, it's good. It keeps us all in the same sort of family, right? The idea that we get to talk about DC over there and a bunch of random stuff on ThunderQuack and ties it all together. So it's, of course, when we talk about DC stuff, you got to come on, Andy, because
I appreciate it.
It's always good to have crossovers. So,
we know. I mean, we know a thing or two about crossovers, don't we, Amanda?
Just a little bit. Yeah.
No, I'm excited. I saw the trailer for the new DC, like basically the Justice League of television. I guess continuity is coming in 3 weeks or 2 weeks to the WB, where they're doing the Crisis on Earth X. So
it's 1 week from now.
1 week? Whoa!
Yep.
What's happening to the month?
Yeah.
Crazy. So it's good. I mean, it's all tying together. I think they're doing stuff. Now is the time of giant superhero mashups. So it's kind of cool that everything's happening at once. And I'm excited that Justice League finally got a thing. I'm in a really good mood. I'm going to do like a quick plug real quick before we start this. But I literally just finished watching. There's the Secret History of Comics that's on right now on AMC. And I just watched the Superman one because one of my friends played the woman who inspired Lois Lane on it. So we came over and we had a little filming thing. And they're really well done if you want to learn a little bit more about like the secret history of comics, and you learn about Joel Siegel and Jerry Schuster. And wait, is that right? Did I do it right?
Yes.
Or is it Jerry Siegel and Joe Schuster? Okay. And about like what like inspired them to do Superman. So I'm coming on to this really hyped and pumped to talk about Superman. So there's like comics everywhere right now. And so, but if you have a chance to check it out, I think AMC is doing like a whole series of them. They did like a Wonder Woman one and a history of Marvel comics as well as the first couple ones. And then there's a few still coming up on AMC. So check them out.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing a couple of them, but yeah, didn't know they were doing any more. But that's awesome though.
Yeah,
I always love those specials. Good. Yeah, just like
learning.
Really cool. Like you just mentioned, we had Justice League this past weekend, and then next week, like you said, the DC version or the DC TV version of the Justice League coming together just a week after. I mean, so much cool stuff to enjoy. Like back, sometimes it's maybe a little too much, where it's hard to pick time to spend on one of them throughout the course of a few days. So, but for this episode, we're just going to be focused on Justice League. So, I guess before we get into it, let's ask both of you guys. Just your, excitement level going into it, and just your initial general reactions once the movie was over. After we saw the movie, the credits rolled, and then the end credit scene at the end. What was your feeling as you walked out of the theater?
Andy, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I will say, I mean, it's definitely been challenging because, I'm a huge fan of the DCU, despite its, multiple flaws and whatnot. It's been difficult to be excited for Justice League in some ways because, there's a lot of people who are not fans of the DCU, which, they're fair to do so, but it's like sometimes the hatred can be so
vitriolic.
Yeah, like it can be so amplified online that it's like there's like times where I have to mute certain words. I don't have to see people talking about how they think Justice League is gonna suck, or like how this is gonna suck, or how this is bad, or whatever. So it's like, it's like I can do without it, but the problem is because I'm a reporter, I have to be online, I have to be on social media, I have to look at things. So it becomes, it's a curse and a blessing in many ways. But I did my best to kind of just ignore like any of the advanced reviews and all the back and forth of like, well, when is the social media embargo gonna live? And like how long is the runtime of Justice League? It's like I feel like every day leading up to the release of the film, like there was always some BS about like trying to just scare people from not seeing it. I'm like, people, it's called Justice League. People are gonna go see it. Yeah, it's Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, The Flash, Aquaman. Like people are gonna go see this, whether you try to scare them off or whatnot. So, but I managed to contain my excitement, and like as soon as I went to the theaters, I was just lit and ready.
Nice. And did you come away from it sort of still feeling like it was worth it, and you were happy that you went to go see it? And
yes. I was so happy with it. I did have some issues with it. I think there's some legit issues with the film, but it's like it's one of the few, like I've seen a lot of comic movies this year, and this was definitely one of the few times where I like had a generally thorough, enjoyable time, and which I haven't had with some of the other comic movies that came out this year, but more on that later.
Right. I mean, I was so excited. I have nobody that really wants to go see DC TV or DC movies with me. But I had a buddy who randomly on Wednesday morning was like, "Hey, I got advanced screening tickets. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Of course I do." So I was so excited. Basically, I got to go see it before all the reviews I started reading them. And so I got to go into it sort of in the same way that you were, Andy. You were like purposely avoiding stuff, and I just like tried to I knew what it was going to be. Like I know all the criticisms, and I mean, Mike and I have talked about this on Quiver a lot, that we know that sort of it's not going to be the greatest film, but it gets to be a fun time. And I went in and got exactly what I sort of wanted out of a Justice League movie, and that is Superman. I mean, this is a spoiler cast. Let's talk about it. I like Justice League. I like DC because of Superman. And I mean, it sucks that they had to kill him in a movie just to bring him back in the next one. But I mean, he got to be in it, and it was, yeah, he's big and he's awesome and he kicks butt and he's the reason that they win, right? And like that's cool. But also I got these I only know the Flash because of how he's portrayed really on the CW and as Grant Gustin, and talking to Andy has made me really stoked about the Flash, because obviously Andy really likes the Flash, and so I've had a new appreciation for the Flash, and so that version that I saw on screen was the Flash to me. Like I'm really excited for his movie. I think that this movie set up future movies really well. I think that the Amazon fight scene, aside from their terrible bathing suit bikinis that they were wearing, was amazing and so much fun. And that's what I wanted from a Justice League movie. I didn't want high art. I wanted something that was fun and exciting to watch and entertain me. And I know a lot of people didn't feel that when they went into it, but I also went with, I guess I always have to sort of set my bar really low when I go in, and it met and exceeded that bar a little bit. So that was exciting. I know it's not like high praise for the film or anything like that, but as a fan of the Superman franchise, I got what I wanted out of it. And I hate Batman still to this day, and it didn't help me in that regard. And I'm sure that if you're a Batman fan, maybe you had completely different ideas. But because I've never really been a huge fan of Batman, it didn't bother me at all. But I'm sure that if I was a fan of Batman, maybe I'd have different ideas. So that's those are my big things.
Cool. Yeah. For me, I was, super excited going into it. Just, especially as we got closer and closer, like the week leading up to it, I just couldn't wait just to finally see this movie. And when I saw it, I just, it delivered for me. I loved it. It's, going into it, like I said, hearing kind of mixed reactions around it. Like the reviews and everything weren't that great, but from other comic fans that I know on social media, their reactions for it, got me pumped for it too, saying, this is actually really good, a solid, DC movie, the Justice League, the characters are handled great. So I was really excited going into it and was, ecstatic once it was over that I really enjoyed it. I mean, I just think the way they handled the characters of the Justice League was almost perfect in my opinion. I just loved what they did with all of them, and kind of each of them getting their little moment in the sun throughout the course of the movie. They each had their one cool moment, and I thought it was spread out pretty evenly too, where it wasn't focused on one and someone didn't get the right amount of screen time and you felt was kind of cast aside, so to speak. But that was a concern going into it, where I was worried about knowing that it was only going to be 2 hours and that a lot of stuff probably had to be cut from it. You know, if it would feel a little rushed, if certain characters, you know, wouldn't get their due and all that. But while I think there are moments where I wish certain scenes could have been extended or have more development with certain characters, I think for the most part, it was pretty good as far as, you know, establishing the characters and getting you to like all of them, really. Each one kind of had a arc that they fulfilled throughout the course of the movie. So I loved the way they handled the characters, and just their interaction and chemistry together I thought was fantastic. This makes me just, you know, want to see more of this going forward, and that's what I really loved about it. By the time it was over, it made me excited about the DC movie universe than I've ever have been before, just where things left off and where the possibilities are going forward. So yeah, I was ecstatic by the time it was over, and just, you know, couldn't wait to see it again, and just, you know, couldn't wait for what the future holds. But nice. Yeah, so I guess some will go into maybe our favorite moments, or, you know, our favorite aspects of the movie that we thought was the best. So go ahead and start with you, Andy. What do you think?
Emma, did you want to say something before?
Well, I did. Because you touched on the idea that it was a 2-hour-long movie, and that I think is a thing that I really didn't realize until it was done, and was like, oh yeah, this is 2 hours. But I'm really curious, and I mean, it's neither here nor there. But one of the things about Batman versus Superman that redeemed the movie for me was watching the director's cut, and so I'm really curious to see. I know that people are petitioning for it, but the director's cut of Justice League, and just see, because I know that in Batman versus Superman, it basically changed some parts of the story in a really, for me, what was a positive way. And I don't know if that would be something that is, anyways, I'm just curious to see if that's becomes a thing, right? If it changes people's ideas, or if there's so much of the movie that was cut out that maybe we did miss some things that would have maybe enhanced it or made it a little better, or if it really was for the betterment of the movie to cut it down to 2 hours. So anyway, sorry, I just wanted to interject with that. Yeah.
No, just to respond to that. I mean, this is such a different situation because with Batman vs Superman, you didn't have another director come in and you know, do reshoots and, you know, and add like I will say this, like, this definitely has a feeling of being two movies smushed into one that in many ways works in its favor but also doesn't. So I mean, I personally hope they do release a Snyder cut, because like I mean, I heard some really amazing things that was, because in many ways, from what I understand, this was kind of like in a vision of Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Justice League kind of being its own trilogy in many ways, where it would complete so many things. Like, I mean, if you look, there's tons of articles out there saying, you know, look at all these missing shots from the trailer and so on. There's a shot, for example, where Cyborg goes full cyborg mode, like he, you know, his whole face just goes wrapped into like this, you know, cyborg mask or whatever, and there's a meaning for that. And you know, we were supposed to see, I believe we were supposed to see Barry Allen time travel to the moment in Batman vs Superman when he tells Bruce that they, you know, Lois Lane is the key and all these things. Like, there was like, I mean, I don't know, there was a lot of cool stuff that was supposed to happen. Like, if you like look at so many of the Zack Snyder interviews and like trailer shots and stuff like that. So, I hope they release an extended like an alternative cut and so on, because I think I think this needs to be the final straw for Warner Bros. In terms of like meddling in their, you know, like in the kitchen and so on. Like, Warner executives are executives; they're not filmmakers. They have to understand that they don't know squat about filmmaking. They need to do what they do, which is being movie executives, and they need to let filmmakers be filmmakers. Like, if Patty Jenkins and James Wan, they get to do their DC films and not have anyone like interfering, meddling in the kitchen and so on, then I think Zack Snyder deserves it too. And I know people like, there's a mixed reaction to Zack Snyder as a director. I personally like his style. I think.
But you don't think he has free reign over his movies? I feel like Zack Snyder.
I don't think he does.
I think definitely not this one. I think after the backlash of BVS,
yeah. But with something like Batman versus Superman, I think that is why there started to be a reign on stuff. And I understand. I think that there's two different ideas. Like, I understand. Sorry to derail this. We'll get back to the things we liked about.
No, yeah, it's fine.
But
it's good a discussion.
Yeah, but like the thing is, I think I had a lot more problems with the meddling of the DC world back when it was that first establishment, and you could tell that there was so much stuff in Man of Steel and in Batman versus Superman that had sort of executive paws all over it. I feel it's less so in this movie, in a way that like they haven't quite got there yet, but I'm not complaining about it this time around, like a lot less than I have been in the past, because I know that that's one of the biggest detriments to Superman, is because it's such a huge franchise. So many people are so invested in how this character is portrayed on screen that there's so many voices that are competing and actually wind up watering down the things you actually like about this character. And those were my problems with the first two films. I feel like it had less of that. I think that they learned in many ways from their mistakes of the first one. I don't know if it necessarily makes for a very cohesive or like better story in any way, but I think that the trueness to the characters, like these 5 superheroes, like the Flash trips over his own feet and is kind of funny and is quirky and like is the Flash. And Aquaman, while he's a completely different version of Aquaman, I think he's very true to the character that they've decided that he's going to be, right? And so I think that there were little shining moments like that where it actually got through a lot of red tape and allowed people to be sort of creative with these characters in a way that we haven't been able to be in the past because they've been treated as such precious commodities.
No, yeah, I agree. No. And, going back to the whole extended cut thing, to me, it's a little different. I kind of hope there is one for this because I think it could be even better just for like DC fans to have more stuff to enjoy and geek out over. Because I feel for Justice League, as a movie, for me personally, it doesn't need it to to fix certain things. I just want to see more of it because I enjoyed it so much.
Same here.
Well, with Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, I think they kind of needed it to help make them improve the movies, which they did. But for this one, I just want to enjoy more of what I saw. So that's why I'm really hoping for an extended cut.
I'm genuinely shocked at that movie because they would tell their filmmakers for a movie like Justice League to cut it down to 2 hours. Like, okay, maybe 2.5 hours is maybe too much easy, but at least 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect.
Like, I feel like, again, movie executives need to stop pretending they're filmmakers. They're not, I'm just gonna leave it at that. But to talk about things I enjoy with the film, I will say this. For a movie that is like, like if we're comparing it to like team movies, like Guardians Galaxy or Avengers or whatever, so on, this is definitely by far my favorite ensemble film ever. Like, yes, the villain is perhaps not the greatest at all, but I could just watch these 6 characters interact and fight to save the world for hours because all like it's also incredible because some of these actors, they never worked together before. Gal and Ben and Henry, and they had worked together before previously, and then we had Jason and Ezra and Ray, and they were completely new. So they had cameos in the last film, and now they're full on part of the group, and so I feel like they worked together for years. And it's like I felt like just for me, a Justice League movie needs to work because of its ensemble, not because like Amanda said, I didn't need high art with this. Like, I don't need it to be like this ultra complex, like psychoanalysis superhero movie and so on. I just wanted to go in and have some genuine fun because right now, with the world we're living in right now, it doesn't allow us to have a lot of fun, even if we try to. Some of our superhero shows are now getting very political, and it's like, we could use a break from that. So my favorite aspect was definitely the ensemble, like all in together. And then, separately, I know in the past I've been very like, oh my God, why didn't Grant Gustin get cast as a Flash in the movies? I wanted to have it because he's my boy, he's my Flash. But I will say that Ezra has entered my heart, and he's sitting at the table now with Grant as one of my favorite Flashes.
Glad to hear it, Andy.
I lost it so many times. I love that he was kind of a klutz in many ways because I don't want Barry to be because he's only been the Flash for 6 or 7 months in that universe. So. I'm still not too fond of the suit. It's still too Power Rangersy for me. But
that's what Mike said as well, was the Power Rangers aspect of the suit. That's so funny. Anyway, sorry. Carry on.
Right. No, but it's true. It's very Power Rangery, and I hope he gets something more sleeker in in his next movie appearance, like something that is maybe a combination of like traditional costume or like modern costume / armory. And because like on the Flash TV show, Cisco has found ways of kind of like being able to implement defense mechanisms and stuff like that without having to look like it's like 5,000 pounds of armor.
Let's just talk a minute, though, for the thing that I think they really did screw up in this movie, and that is costumes, if we want to talk about it a little bit. And it's fine. I mean, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, they were all established beforehand. But I think that the Flash will get a different costume. I think that they have to. That's part of the Flash movie. They need agency to create their own costumes, because if the Amazonians are anything to say about it, obviously they don't have costume continuity across things. Why, oh why would you change the characters? Like, they made these costumes for Amazons that were realistic body armor, and then when a man became the director of the film, they became bikinis. I don't understand it. So this idea that, yes, I feel like if the silver lining that can be granted from these terrible Amazon costumes is the fact that the Flash gets his own rebuild of a costume in his next movie, then sure, it'll all have been for something. But like that, honestly, I don't know. I'm like on my own little, like, but it's like my own little rampage train. But I think that it was because the Amazon fight was one of my favorite parts of the movie. I thought it was so well done.
Was really
and
cool.
I mean the lead, I mean, like, she obviously had her like similar armor to the first movie, and it was very good. But like, honestly, these women were going into battle wearing bikinis. Like, it's not as if they just got like ambushed out of nowhere. They literally had to go to a place to fight somebody, and they were like standing guard at this like cave, and they had, anyways, silver lining for what I like.
I missed that. I missed that part, like where we saw like the bikini stuff. I saw it like maybe once, like very quickly, but like otherwise, like, I don't think we. I mean, again, I'm not trying to like defend the fact because they should, there's no reason they should have changed the content at the beginning. But like, it was like.
It makes it worse. They were background characters, right? Like one of the senators had like one of the speaking role senators was wearing a two-piece, and then the women that actually like used the big hammers to like seal the gates, a couple of them were wearing two-pieces. So like a few featured ones were wearing two-pieces, but then a lot of it was just in the background. And I'm like, if that's what you're doing with these characters, like you already have the armor built. Like just put it on. Like I don't even get it. Like if it was for eye candy and for like sex appeal, like at least make them more like that's the thing that like really baffles my mind about it, is that it was just sort of a choice that somebody made when they were making these costumes that undermines so much that people were praising in Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman, was the like continuity of these Amazon warriors that were these fierce women warriors who knew how to protect themselves from battle, right? And so anyways, it's such a small thing, but it's like a thing that it's like, it just seemed wholly unnecessary. Like it didn't add anything to the story at all, that they like took this like realistic, awesome piece from the previous Wonder Woman movie and like undermined it in the second one. But whatever.
No, I get it. No, but yeah, for me, then Saba was like the heart of the movie, and I feel like that's why the movie worked in so many ways. I feel like, like, I don't know, I mean, if that hadn't worked, then I don't think I would have enjoyed Justice League at all. Like, because if we have a bad villain and a bad group dynamic, then it's definitely a bad movie. Yeah. But but the biggest victory for me is that if we have 5-6 actors working together as a group, then it's like that you have me, and so that was like one of my favorite aspects of the film.
I love that you're on a first name basis with them all too, Andy. Jason.
Here's the thing. Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot, they walked past me at a Comic-Con 2 years ago, so I feel like I have the right to call them by first name. I know. I honestly don't know why I can't call them by
more so than
name.
us, Andy. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's good. You know what? It's fine. They're in our hearts. They're our besties. That's what when you take on this mantle, they become sort of like these superheroes. They mean a lot to a lot of people. I think it's really interesting. And I know that, I mean, obviously Christopher Reeves talked about that all the time, about how like when you step into that role, about like you sort of become part of that character, and these are such iconic roles that I think it's really, I think that they would be happy, Andy, that you considered them.
Well, that's the one thing I was going to say that is key for me with this film compared to some other superhero movies we've seen lately, is that this movie actually left me like feeling inspired and hopeful when I left the theater. Like I will say this, and I'm sure there's going to be some Marvel fans that hate me out there, but you know what? I take hate all the time on Twitter, so it's fine. Marvel, for the most time, make comic book movies. DC mostly makes superhero movies. I'm not throwing shade. I'm just saying that this year I was only inspired by one Marvel superhero movie. That was Spider-Man Homecoming. But I don't know, it's like Ragnarok was like, it did not live up to the hype that I was like being told about. And so I felt Kevin Feige basically lied to everyone at that big Phase 3 announcement where he was like, Ragnarok is a central piece of Phase 3. I'm like, I see the film, I'm like, yeah, Kevin, what did you mean? I don't see it.
It's so fun. It's so fun, though. I love Thor Ragnarok.
It's a fun movie. It's better than I thought it was going to be, but at the same time, it's like, it's not the masterful masterpiece that everyone keeps saying it is. It's like, it's definitely one of the best Thor movies. It's definitely the second best MCU movie of the year. But it's like, I don't think Ragnarok is by no means better than, for example, like Justice League, because I don't feel like when I left that theater being inspired, I just felt So basically everything we knew was going to happen happened.
That's fair. It wasn't inspired. I'm going to say I wasn't inspired necessarily by Thor. It was just a good time.
And I think it all depends too on the type of story these comic book movies are telling, which I think is great that we got so many this year, and each of them had their own story to tell. And some of them, like you mentioned, Andy, were had that more inspiration and hopefulness that I think Justice League really had. But then you just got like these movies where these characters are in specific situations that's not necessarily inspiring to anyone, but it's still a story that I think it's like really fun to experience, like with Guardians and Thor Ragnarok. So it's just good to have this.
It's just more for entertainment.
Yeah,
it's more for entertainment.
But it's great to have a nice variety of these different types of comic book movies that can go in different areas.
But I feel something that's sad about like with critics and some fans these days, that I feel like it's I don't think a lot of people are appreciating superhero stories anymore as much as they're doing with comic book stories. I feel like seeing Guardians of the Galaxy just doing some whack stuff in space and so I feel like it's being more appreciated than seeing something like what the Justice League is doing. So like, I mean, I will say that I'm glad the fact that Wonder Woman has gotten the reception that it has, both as a character and as a franchise. But at the same time, I don't think like Justice League should be neglected for the fact that it actually has some inspiring fighters to it. The fact that Batman in this movie, like he is like, this is the Batman that is evolved from Batman vs Superman.
Oh, yeah. My favorite part of this movie, or I mean, I guess my favorite thematic part of this movie is when Batman explains to Alfred the difference between Batman and Superman.
Yeah, that was great.
And it was the moment that I redeemed. Ben Affleck no longer sucked in my book as Batman, because this Batman finally got it. Like, he understood those characters in a way that I just think we never really saw him get in Batman versus Superman. Like, and so I think that the biggest thing for me that I always have a problem is that people like uphold Batman to this sort of standard, and they're like, oh, he's a hero, he puts on this mantle and he chooses to do this. And I'm like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, at the core of Superman's character is this humanity that Batman will never have. And the fact that he acknowledges that in this movie, I think for me was a huge apology from Warner Brothers to me personally. Like, I felt like that's what was happening on screen, was them like being like, we understand what we did in the past movie, and we tried to use this character that has a lot of cachet. Like, I feel like Batman is the most popular of the, like, as much as Superman is the most iconic, I think Batman is the most popular, right? And they tried to shove this. They tried to shove this pop culture icon down our throats in a really disingenuous way. And that's my biggest thing with Batman versus Superman, is that they just made these characters fight for no reason. And so I think that to me was a way for them to acknowledge what they did and really be like, we get these characters, we actually do. We know what we did. And now let's make a few amends. And I think, like, to me, that was a great, I was really excited by that moment. I think that it was a really good, a good moment of filmmaking. So
I think that was intentional though from Batman vs Superman, that he was supposed to be very cynical and very kind of, stuck in his own dark cloud. I think that was always the plan. I think the whole.
It was always the plan, Andy. It was a stupid plan.
Okay, I
understand that that's what they were going for. I don't think it was the best sequel to like do for a Superman story.
Yeah.
Anyways,
as a lifelong Batman fan who's always been my favorite superhero, probably my favorite character in fiction, period. I was even, as much, I love Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman in BVS. It's just, how they decided to go with the character. That was a bit disappointing.
That's the thing. Like, yeah, he's totally in character for what they set that movie up to be. But I think in hindsight, they're kind of like, oh, that may not have been what fans wanted. And we're like, yeah, no, we want like.
It's all Frank Miller's fault.
But in Justice League, this is, right from the get-go, that opening sequence with Batman. I mean, I was already geeking out with that. That was a really awesome Batman sequence. It's straight out of a comic book. And, it was taking a page literally, I think, from Jeff Johns and Jim Lee's Justice League #1 that kicked off the New 52, where Batman encounters a parademon and starts flying with that parademon in the sea. That was just like really cool to see, just brought in live action.
It felt like an opening of Batman the Animated Series episode.
Yeah, it just felt like Batman, period, which was awesome.
I will say Batman really was funner for me in this movie. Like even him even holding his own, right? Like with like taking that Parademon's gun in that final fight scene.
Yeah.
So I did watch the movie twice. I went back a second time and because I convinced another friend to go see it with me on the weekend, so I have seen it twice. And then
you're doing God's work, Amanda. You're doing God's work.
Right? Well, because I didn't pay for the tickets. Like the tickets for the advanced screening were like complimentary tickets, and I was like, I want to give them my money. So I went back.
They need it too.
That's what they do. They need our money. Yeah. So anyway, so I wanted to actually go to the movie. But in it, I was kind of like, I watched the first big fight where they're all they're rescuing the civilians that are like trapped, like Victor's dad or whatever. And I was like, wait, when is Batman gonna grab the gun? I really like that part. And I was like, oh no, that's in the finale. But it was a thing where I remembered that and actually was like disappointed that I was like, I want Batman to do more, which I've never experienced watching really like a Batman show before. So it was like a good thing to me where I was like, oh, okay. I like Batman fits in really well in this story, and I actually enjoyed watching him and was entertained by him for like I really like Under the Red Hood, that animated series.
Yeah.
But other than that,
that's such a good movie.
It's so good. But anyways, so that was like the moment to me, like in watching it a second time, all its flaws aside, in terms of these characters, it was the first time that I had actually like had sort of a scene for Batman, and I was really excited that the movie could do that for me, because I've been looking for a movie to do that for a while, and the fact that it's in Justice League I think is really fitting, because it's like, you know, it's when you get to celebrate all the ensemble characters and all these different characters that we like for different reasons. So
totally, yeah. And I just like how the movie kicks off where, you know, we were already introduced to Batman and Wonder Woman in BVS. So the movie starts with, you know, really two cool sequences with both characters. The Batman we just talked about, and then Wonder Woman saving those civilians and stopping that bomb in that building in London. That was another great action sequence. You know, so two great ones.
Kind of to no end, though.
I'm sorry?
Like, I wanted to no end.
Oh,
though.
yeah.
It was really cool. It's like, but nothing really came of it. You're kind of like, all right, I guess
I think you were supposed to be able to check in where all the characters were.
Yeah, that's what I took it too.
It's almost like it's almost it reminded me a little bit of the first episode of Defenders, where like the first like each 10 minutes was spent on like catching up with what is Matt doing right now, what is Jessica doing, and so on. So it had a kind of vibe like that, which I didn't mind, because, you know, like, I mean, when they get to be badass and stuff like that, I'm like, I don't mind. Yeah, let her kick some more men in the head. It's fine.
I mean, just seeing her block those bullets in that super fast speed was so awesome. It was like, we've seen that in animation, we've seen it in comic books, and now we got to see it in a live action movie, and it was really, really cool.
It's cool. My best. Okay, yes, I'm gonna focus on best Wonder Woman moment, and that for me is that end, because Wonder Woman and Superman, best team up ever is when Superman blows Steppenwolf's hammer, and then Wonder Woman gets to do her big dive through the air knife thing. Because I had been waiting for it, right? Because they did so many of those really awesome, iconic, like her through the sky shots in Wonder Woman, that I was waiting for it in this movie. And then when you finally get it in that big climactic scene, it was really, I'm like, I know you can't see me because we're podcasting, but I'm doing it as I'm talking about it. I'm like raising myself.
I could imagine, I was imagining you actually doing it.
Anyways, it was really fun, and I really like that moment sort of all coming together and getting that really cool Wonder Woman moment out of her. Everybody had like a really good moment for their character.
Yeah, like I felt, no one was wasted in this film, I think. I mean, there were a few side characters that I wish had been featured a little bit more. I mean, I wish we'd seen more of Amber Heard as Mara, because that was so cool. Although, I'm gonna admit it, I really hope they're not doing every time they're gonna talk in water, I hope they don't do like the whole like, let's make a bubble inside of a water so we can talk.
Yeah,
interesting.
I think how it's gonna be, like the way Atlantis and the palace is set up, is gonna be, you know, kind of something. I'm kind of like episode 1 where when they go to the Auto Gunga with the Meet the Gungas, they have like those bubble chambers where they go in and they're able to, you know, talk normal like that. I think it's going to be something similar like that. So not, you know, they don't have to get Mara every time they need dialogue and create that water bubble. That's what I picture them doing.
I'm excited to see what they do with it. It'll be even just the special effects in this one for water. Oh, actually, let's just talk about the special effects in general for a second, because what they accomplished with water, they failed with mustache removal. So I don't know.
Oh Lord!
Like these two.
You know what?
I'm so tired of this fucking.
Maybe I'm just sorry. You know, maybe I need new prescription contacts or something. But when I first saw it, I didn't notice it at all. Like nothing took me back and made me think, oh man,
me neither.
There it is. Then I saw it a second time. I was kind of looking for it. Maybe I noticed something a little off a little bit, but if I probably wasn't looking really hard, I wouldn't notice at all.
I looked at screenshots of it and I'm like, I can't even see it. I'm like, Yeah, even those CGI lips, I would still care. I'm just saying.
That's awesome. I don't know.
With his consent, by the way, just saying.
Of course. Thank you, Andy, for that little added bonus. Consent is key. But it was a thing where I didn't realize what it was until after the film, and I was reading reviews and people were talking about it, and I was like, oh, that's what was bumping against me. Because there was some scenes with him in it where I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was that was like slightly off-putting. And then I realized, so watching it a second time, I was like, oh yeah, it's
Describe it to me, because I still can't see it.
Okay, well now I want to make sure that it might be not actually in the scene, but the camera phone scene, was that one of the reshoots?
Yeah, I believe it was.
The opening scene? Because that to me, I thought that when I first watched it, I thought the reason that it was so off-putting to me was because I wasn't expecting that kind of a shot to open the film. But in hindsight, the shot actually kind of works for what they were going for with the storytelling. But I realized that it was just his face looked so weird, and it was because of the CGI for it. And that was the thing that wound up clocking for me as I was reading the reviews at the end, is that that's why my first initial reaction of the movie was something that I couldn't quite place my finger on, and that was off. And so that for me is really all it was. And then every once in a while I would sort of notice it throughout the film, but it wouldn't be as jarring. It was just that really opening moment where they're trying to set up this iconic thing that you're sort of supposed to relate to. And I was like, what's going on? What's up with his face? So that,
although,
it's not
can I just admit one thing though, is the fact that, as podcasters, the film starts out with small kids being podcasters. I was like, I wonder what equipment they're using. Do they use Libsyn? Do they use Audacity?
That's probably the most unrealistic thing in the movie.
No, Ted, you and I and Amanda, we would have done the same thing. If I got a hold of Flash like that, I would have spazzed and been like, Mr. Flash, where did you get this suit from?
But
it was a good little.
I thought it was a cool little way to start the movie, though, and especially setting up for how it ends too. That was two great bookends with Superman to begin the movie and end it.
Since we talked about the consistent, the already existing characters, what did you get? Who was your favorite new Justice League character out of the free ones we got?
Yeah,
Slade.
Well, it's kind of hard to argue that.
Wait, what did you say?
I said Slade. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know. And I know it's not one of the Justice League characters, but in terms of a new character that the movie set up, I'm so excited for Slade. I hadn't been following the news, so I didn't know that they'd cast that Joe whatever. Let's first name basis.
Manganiello.
Yeah, Manganiello. Who I really like. I've liked him ever since. Well, I mean, he's fabulous in Magic Mike, but also in when he was a werewolf back on whatever it was, True Blood or something, I think. And so he's been really cool, and I love him. And I didn't realize he was Slade. And then just seeing that when you stay to the end credits, and then the first thing you see is the back of his, and you see his swords, and I'm like, oh, that looks like Deathstroke. And I was like, wait, that is Deathstroke. Oh my God, I'm so excited. And I know anyways, but in terms of Justice League character, Flash was my favorite new introduction. But I already said that earlier.
Yeah, I'm going to agree.
What about you, Tim?
I'm going to agree on both fronts. Deathstroke looked awesome. Unfortunately, I was spoiled on that before. I went and saw it just a few days before. It's people keep your mouth shut on social media. Is that really that hard to do? But
you didn't know Flash was in the movie?
Yeah, that was a huge surprise. Yeah. But no,
that's not Grant Gustin.
Wait, why is he working by himself? There's no Team Flash. This is weird. Yeah. But I agree on that too. Flash was, the standout for me. I just loved this portrayal of Flash, and to me, it reminded me, even though it was Barry Allen, it reminded me of the Wally West we saw on the Justice League animated series and Justice League Unlimited.
It's because they basically merged Barry with Wally. That's what they've been doing on TV in some ways too. It is.
But this one even more so with the comedic aspect, and this is how we saw.
This is even more. Yeah. This is even more so.
I just love that wide-eyed look he always has, just this being in awe of everything and just really enjoying what he's doing. But at the same time, being we talked about before, how this is all new to him, and just being that nervousness he showed when they're about to confront Steppenwolf and rescue those scientists. I love that moment where he was saying, it's cool you guys do this, but I just push people and run away. Like, what do I do? And I just love the speech Batman gave to him too, just saying, just rescue one. And then he goes, well, what after that? He goes, you'll know. I love that moment. So Flash was the standout, and just right away, that opening, the scene where he was introduced, where he was going to visit his dad. And
so good.
I had issues with that because I felt it was a little bit too similar to what they did on the show. Like that, like I was okay, I know that it's been done in the comic before and so on, but I think the whole hand thing was just a little bit too forced. I was like, okay,
it cracked me up,
no, I'm like, no, that's John and Grant's thing. Just saying.
But here's the thing: it's for people that don't watch the TV series, right? They now get a glimpse into this character that nobody really knows, and I know that that's shocking for you, Andy. But
no, it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. No, but it's like I get it. Like, in America, like, you know, the Flash averages like what 3 million viewers per episode or something like that. So it's just like, but you know, that's just like a little fraction of the country and so on. Then, you know, so it's like I get that not every person who saw Justice League sees the show, perhaps. For me, I was like, for me personally, I just felt like you could have done that a little bit different. No, but I wasn't too compelled by the actor who played Henry. I think I don't like he felt a bit too young for me.
He is a little young, but I will say the thing I liked about them is because their relationship emulated the one that I really like on the Flash TV series. So for the reasons that I think that you are sort of bumping against it are actually some of the reasons that it drew me in a little bit. So that's why, like, I did feel so similar, like that I was seeing a story I'd already seen before play out, but on a bigger screen. So I was okay with that. Like, I was okay with that, even though, yes, it is a little bit of a cop-out that they didn't do it, like, slightly differently. But
and I think, too, the whole reason why they decided to go with Barry, even though, to me, he was displaying more, like, Wally West characteristics, was just because Barry Allen has the best, you know, origin story of all the Flashes. It's just so compelling, and it draws you in, especially if they want to build on it for future movies. It's such a great backstory to have for the character, which, you know, I think why they use it. It even served well in this movie, too, but just the little bit that he was in at that moment where he goes back and tells him he got a job.
So what I feel like, for me, for me, I sound very biased when I do say the Flash was the standout for me, but I do want to give, you know, like, some really big love for Cyborg. I did not expect.
You're the only one. You're the only one, Andy. I haven't heard any love for Cyborg.
I've heard a few.
I've heard a few too. I did not know I was gonna connect so much with him as a character. Like Ray Fisher, like he's a stage actor. Like he's trained. He's like he got this, and he like I was sucked into his performance as Cyborg, and like, you know, there's been a lot of talks about people thinking, well, can Cyborg really hold his own film or even his own comic? And I feel like after seeing this, yes, they absolutely can. Like, because I think he's a character that brings something unique to the table. It's like, like I would say this, like, for all the Iron Mans and the War Machines that we've had and so on, it's like, screw that. Cyborg is the cool stuff. And I'm glad he got like a more comic accurate suit towards the end of the film, because I will say that his whole like his bizarre design and throughout the most of the film, it was definitely a lot to take in. So by the time they kind of made it a little bit sleeker, I was like, oh, that's like that's a nice touch. And Aquaman was just like a part, like he was like a rock star. I love that. Like, because I'm just like, you know what, you get someone like Jason Momoa who is like a rock star because of Game of Thrones. I think that makes sense.
He killed a parademon in the sky and rode it through a multiple story building and surfed it into the streets. Like, that is gotta be the most unrealistic thing, but I love it. It was so good. So yes, Aquaman, go Anya. And I do love that he really, like, there's no water scenes. He got his one water scene, right, where he stops the big flood, but at the same time you kind of like, otherwise he just gets to be sort of this like badass. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and the best moment with Aquaman though is where he's telling everyone how he thinks they're gonna die, but then he starts letting his feelings show.
I was like, man, he's getting really like emotional here. I'm like, is he really this afraid to die? And then I'm like, everyone's just like pointing, and I'm like,
my other favorite comedy beat. Oh, sorry, Tim. I think you were saying something.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Anyways, my other favorite comedy beat is the when Barry's saving the civilians and then Superman saves the building. That
was awesome.
Classic. It's classic. Like, using the characters for who they are. Like, right? Like, obviously you're sitting around in a group of people, you're going to accidentally sit on the lasso of truth and like get a little emotional, right? But then you get the other like the other side of that as well. Like you're saving people and Barry's going to do what he's going to do and Superman's going to do what he's going to do. And I liked it when they could add the comedy in a really realistic and grounded way for like these characters. Mm-hmm. So that was it was nice to have little moments like that.
Yeah.
I like it too. I like the fact that even they had only 2 scenes together.
Yeah.
Ezra and Henry Cavill, they had some strong chemistry together.
Yeah,
like
totally
I feel like I can buy into this relationship like moving forward. I mean, now I want to like ask him like, was there, because I don't want it just to be completely cheerleaders for this film, like because I think we should acknowledge if there were any legit issues with this film. Did you guys have any?
Well,
so not enough Green Lanterns.
Oh yeah,
where were all that was so cool.
That was amazing.
Lantern.
That
which lantern was that supposed to be again? I know it was like one of those older ones, like from like many years ago.
Yeah, not one of the more popular ones who's even in any of the comics right now. So it was kind of one picked from obscurity, but man, that was my biggest geek out moment of the movie. I gotta say, because.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
As much as I love this movie, it won't be the perfect Justice League movie I was waiting for, just because the team's incomplete. It needed a Green Lantern. Right. So, but the fact that they gave us just a little nugget of one, a little tease, that was enough for me. Just seeing one construct, and then when he gets killed, the ring just go off looking for a new wielder. I thought that was amazing. So, I agree. But if I had a nitpick about it, I have 2, and this one is not, ones I've been hearing a lot of people have issues with it. This is mainly coming from going back to the whole runtime and 2-hour thing. I thought the end of battle sequence with the Justice League and Steppenwolf and the Parademons, it was cool. I loved it, but it just didn't have that. I felt it could have been longer because it didn't have that epic, like climactic feel that certain other big team up movies have, like the first Avengers. I thought that was the perfect length where you just got some great action and character moments and just felt a culmination of all the cool stuff leading up to it, to one big epic finale.
I didn't mind it though, because I'm kind of tired of the overdone, extended, long fight sequences, because I'm like, okay, it's like, how much cooler things can these people do? It's like, just like, I need to go
characters
pee or
a lot
something.
Yeah.
So that was one of them, but my other one, this is coming from more on the Superman aspect and how he was brought back, which I'm curious to hear what you guys think of just the reason and how he was brought back. It took me by surprise that it was the mother box that did it, and that, it was initiated by Bruce to wanting to use it to bring it back. That took me by surprise. I was okay with it. It made sense to me. But I just kind of felt wish they spent a little more time with Clark once he came out of it with Lois, just giving a little more explanation of him coming out of that, state of mind of just, not knowing who everyone is and wanting to kill Batman. Like, I was fine with that, but
they have to fight. Yeah,
I was fine with it. But I know Lois was like the catalyst to change that. But I just, because he felt like a totally different person than we've seen before, which was awesome. That Superman we got at the end was the perfect Superman, but it just felt like such a drastic change. I kind of wanted maybe a little more explanation about saying
it reminded me a lot about the Flash season 4 premiere in some ways. And I mean, I know it's not completely the same thing, but like with Barry coming out of the Speed Force and being kind of whammy and stuff, like it did, it had a very similar feeling to me like that. And and I said it on the Flash because when the premiere, we were talking about the premiere, I said like, I will kind of give them a pass on whatever BS excuse they had to do, because I just want to get back to what I love. And that's the thing with Superman. Like, look, I've loved Henry Cavill as Superman since Man of Steel. I think his Superman it's been a very realistic journey for him, and some ways they could have done things better. But like this, for people who have been saying that he's the worst Superman of all time, and so I'm like, first of all, the worst Superman ever is Brandon Routh's Superman, who is just like a ripoff from Christopher Reeve. So like, let's just not even talk about that. But secondly, I feel like
I love you, Brandon.
He's great
no fault
as
of his
Iron
own,
Adam. He's great as Iron Adam. But I'm just saying that
he is just Christopher.
And it's a Christopher ripoff. Like, that's the whole problem with Superman Returns. It's like they just try to remake a Donner universe movie where you can't do that universe without Christopher Reeve and Richard Donner. But Henry Cavill, I feel like he has been so underappreciated that when they brought him back, I mean, I will say this, the whole Mother Box thing, I definitely feel like that was a Whedon thing. Like, I think that was a Whedon thing. It was simplified.
It was so core to the story, though. Like, that was the whole point of this. Like, it's all built along this, like, thing that one of the reviews I love, where they were like, Yeah, just the fact to have all these characters have to say mother box with a straight face was like an amusing part to the film.
I don't know. I don't know
like,
why it's so funny. It's like, I mean,
I'm just so used to it by now from DC lore, so it just felt normal.
Yeah,
I guess so.
I mean, I love the apocalypse mythology, so I'm like, when they see Boom Tube and Mother Box and so on, like, I mean, I will say this: Steppenwolf is a ridiculous name, which kind of makes sense because Steppenwolf in this movie was ridiculous. He was a bad villain. That's where the CGI was kind of bad. And next time, maybe have the actor be with the actors who are playing these characters, like, because the actor who played Steppenwolf, he wasn't even there for the filming of Justice League. He did all his thing after they were done with principal photography. So I'm like, yeah, maybe we should just not do that anymore. But yeah, I don't know. But Superman's Resurrection, I felt like it was simplified, which I guess it's okay for me. I think the fight sequence was, I was worried, like you guys, like that he was gonna fight the other Justice League members, like he was gonna be a villain for like I thought he was gonna be a villain for like 20 minutes or something, but thankfully it was just, but the fight ended up being more funnier though than I imagined. I
love that fight sequence. That's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
When Barry runs around, and I lost that because Ezra Miller's face was just so perfect.
Yeah,
because
it was really good. Yeah.
Like I could just see it. It's like ice cream just melting in slow motion.
Yeah, it was. I will give it that. That was pretty good. But so I'm now just getting while you were talking about it though, I realized a thing that I don't know if I'm like reading now too much into the movie, because one of the things that I heard people talk about is how they're like, well, why did Superman have to like fight them? And it wasn't even that. My biggest, like, I'm sort of in your camp, Tim, is I wanted more of Superman coming back and like what it was like for him and like more of the Lois and him stuff. But I'm wondering now if the whole point is that had Lois not showed up, he would have become the Superman that we see in Bruce's flashbacks or whatever in Batman versus Superman. Like, is that sort of what they were saying? Is like, this is the moment.
Yeah.
Because that to me is like a little bit better. And like, if that's what it was, where they were like, this is the Superman that Bruce dreamt about.
Yeah, and it ties into a Flash saying that Lois is the key too. Yeah.
Right. And so if that's true, then I'm like, okay, well, I like it more. Like if that's why they had to do that fight, which is cool. I just wish they hadn't killed him in the first place, because then you could have an actual Justice League movie with him in it. But yeah,
I actually like it in some ways, because I feel like when we were in Batman vs Superman, I feel like the problem with that universe was the fact that world did not appreciate Superman. I feel like when he died at the hands of Doomsday, sacrificing himself to stop Doomsday, I feel that's when humanity, most of humanity at least, became like they accepted him and they understood what he was here for. So now that he's back, I feel like people are now going to be. I mean, I'll say this. Would I have done that? Oh, hell no. Not in the second movie. But if you're like, if this is the path you have to go with, I feel like this is a nice way to kind of cap off that story. Because now I feel like next time we see him in a Superman movie or something like that, Metropolis is not like, there's not gonna be a bunch of like, ban aliens, send them home, like make Metropolis great again. Oh, dear Lord, may there not be a sign that says make Metropolis great again, because I do not need Donald Trump in these movies. But I will agree that in the comics, does any of the Mother Boxes actually resurrect things? Like, I was just like, I mean, they can do adaptations, I guess, but at the same time, it's like, is this what they actually do in the comic books? I don't really think they do.
Yeah, not any that I've read, but it wouldn't surprise me.
They science magic that way. It was science magic. That's what they explained. Science magic is like, because that's what like the whole like Victor Stone's dad was explaining it, and then they were like, oh yes, science, and cells that don't decay and electrical current. So
that makes sense, because he has Kryptonian cells. He has Kryptonian cells, and the sun is still like it's boosting him.
Yeah, and that was a thing to me where I was like, okay, if that's what you're gonna go with, go with it. Because like I sort of rolled my eyes when I was like, really, this is the explanation. But you know what? They committed to it. They were like, yes, it's the Mother Box. This is the thing that's bringing him back, because he never decomposed. And I'm like, okay, sure. I believe it. Like, in the confines of the universe that they'd set up, it made sense. So sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just, Yeah. Do I get to talk about what I didn't like in the movie?
Go for it.
And it's, again, I feel like I'm on my little like feminist like ranty post for a second, but I realized something. A scene that didn't quite fit with me in the movie is I really like that Lois was featured a little bit in it, but like that scene with her and Mother Kent, or what's her name? Martha. Yeah, Martha. How could I forget Martha? Anyway.
Martha. No, but I'm just gonna say it. I like that Martha thing from BBS. I'm just gonna say it.
I'm with you too, Andy. I could go on a whole rant about that too, but we got time for it.
All right. But anyways, I liked that they sort of started to develop this relationship with these two characters, but it sort of seemed a little bit forced. To me, like, I don't know why, like, it just seemed like a little bit like it wasn't quite. I don't know. People are complaining a little bit about Lois's character, that like she should have got over Superman, or she was like a little bit mopey and she wasn't quite Lois. And that to me was also a little bit of my concern. I'm not saying that she should grieve, like she really loved him and all this stuff, but she wasn't quite Lois. And it was a little bit off-putting for me, because the whole reason that I love Superman and why he's my favorite comic book hero is because of Lois Lane. I really love her. I love what she is to him and how they play off one another. And I didn't quite get the Lois that I wanted in this film. And the other thing is that if it weren't for that scene that seemed a little shoehorned in with Martha and Lois, this movie wouldn't have passed the Bechdel test, which is neither here nor there. But it also was a thing where I realized it was way later, when I realized that there wasn't actually that many women in this movie. Like, there's Wonder Woman and Lois Lane. They're never in scenes together. And then there's Martha Kent. But I couldn't really think
that's a problem with a lot of comic book movies. Like, it's like, what? How, like, Avengers have how many female members besides Black Widow and Scarlet Witch? Like, really no one.
None. And so it's like, sure, that's good. And so I do like that. I think that maybe somebody made a conscious effort to make sure that, like, at least there was like a few scenes with like women having like conversations and relationships. So that was kind of cool, but I don't know if it served the story very well. Like, I don't know what was with that like cursing old lady on the like, it was a really weird sort of shoehorned moment for me. But at the same time, like, I feel like it was necessary for certain points of character development for these women that we otherwise don't really see a lot. But, you know, it's neither here nor there. It's just like the one thing that really sort of rubbed me the wrong way. Well, it should have been like something that I really liked, because I think that scene was for me, like, as an audience member, that was made specifically for like people like me that want to see Lois's character and how she's dealing with this stuff. And in the aftermath of Superman's death, like, that's who I really care about, his mother and his like fiance. So
Lois is an important story to Superman. I feel like that's the problem with like these team up movies and shows, is that it's always difficult. Like, when you're bringing in franchise characters into one thing, like Defenders or Avengers or Justice League and so on, it's difficult to kind of fit in all the supporting characters from each of these separate franchises or TV shows. Like, I mean, I think Defenders is a perfect example. It's like, what? I think Trish Walker, Karen Page, and fucking else, like, they had like what, like maybe a few minutes of screen time in a total of 8 episodes. It's like it's challenging because you only have a certain amount of time to do things with. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I think these movies are, until they can figure out how to do it, I think it's always gonna be damaging to the supporting characters from other franchises, because there's just no way to make them fit in, like at least in a way I think that satisfies everyone. I mean, I'm glad that Lois was even in it to begin with, and that she had some, like, when she was in the film, she was used to the best of their ability. Like, she was the key to bring Clark back. She was there to kind of acknowledge the fact that she is struggling with getting back to her normal groove.
Yeah,
and like I think it was like they did it. It's like not to use an example, but it's like, it's not like she was like Laurel Lass, who only had to like stand her sometimes in most episodes and not say anything, which was like an injustice of its own. But I'm just saying.
And I thought the way the movie ended with her, you know, getting back, you know, to being that reporter we all know and writing that monologue that we heard over the end sequence, I thought was a great way to sum up the movie, and just a great use of Lois Lane too. Just, you know, talk about out of the darkness comes light, and how these heroes inspire hope. You know, I thought that was a perfect way to use her as a character, and just to really sum up the end of the movie with all the different members of the Justice League. And I just love seeing them, you know, after that big battle off, you know, accepted. I wish there was a scene though that they were all together talking about the future of the team, maybe establishing certain things. We got a little bit of that.
Well, that's kind of what they did. They kind of did it when they were talking about foreshadowing the Hall of Justice.
Yeah, that was cool. I just wish all of them were there though. That was the thing.
Yeah.
But it was cool getting those little montages of like Barry going back to his father, but then just running through the city with a big smile on his face. Aquaman would look like going back to Atlantis, and then Wonder Woman, stopping those criminals, but yet saying hi to those kids coming to where that was really cool. So it was just a great, way to sum up all the characters and bring closure to the story in this movie with that monologue of Lois showing how there's, the future is bright, so to speak. But perfect way to end it with Superman or Clark doing the iconic Superman pose of just walking to the camera, ripping the shirt with the logo, and then just flying in the sky. Yeah. I mean, couldn't ask for a better ending to the movie than that.
Yeah, it gives me hope for the Superman franchise, which is all I ever wanted, because that's what I care about. And so I really hope that they keep doing really, really cool things with that. And again, I don't know what the future really holds for him and for that, but
there's going to be a Man of Steel sequel.
Yeah, I hope that it's good though. Like I hope that
it's going to be good.
This idea, but here's the thing. The problem that DC has is that they don't just they keep getting kicked down at the box office. And I'm always worried that it's gonna, if they did anything this round to sort of take a step back as a franchise, like if Warner Brothers was like, okay, you can play a little bit in the sandbox, and now the sandbox has sunk and they're like, no more playing in the sandbox, let's do it this way because it's gonna work. And I'm I really don't want that to happen.
Here's the thing. I think that a lot of people are there's been so much talk about the fact it has the lowest box office opening in the DCU and so on. Here's the thing. I choose to believe that the Warner Bros. Realized that, look, they messed up to begin with. They were not too confident about this film going into it, and I'm not putting blame on Zack Snyder or Joss Whedon. Although there are some things Joss could have maybe avoided doing. Did we really need a scene of Barry landing in Wonder Woman's
like when she lands on him or whatever, or he lands on her?
Yeah, I feel like it was like. Yeah.
It was unnecessary. It's whatever. He saved somebody.
I was talking to my sister about it today, and I was kind of going, I'm almost starting to wonder if Joss Whedon's way of writing, women or women's scenes or so are maybe a little bit outdated.
Oh, no, they very much are. And it's a thing that I've only started to really, put a finger on. And, I was talking to Mike about this the other day, where he was like, this movie sort of suffered from a lot of things that are really ways that women impacted the men making the movie. I mean, obviously in really negative and sort of heartbreaking ways, but you have what Zack Snyder went through with his daughter, right?
Yeah.
His daughter, sadly committed suicide,
which is just heartbreaking. But then when Joss Whedon went in to take over and put his own bent on stuff, his wife also came forward around that time and sort of said, hey world, Joss Whedon's not the feminist that you tout him to be, right? And I think that maybe he was dealing with that a little bit as he was doing this, and maybe had to really reconcile with some of his, right? If you get told that you're not a feminist when you think you are one, that's going to play tricks on you, and maybe it would compromise how you wrote things into the film. So I could see that being a thing.
What I was going to say about the box office thing is that, okay, I don't think that the DCU is going to take a step back, because this film is going to make money. I promise you.
Not enough what it probably needed to, though.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think one of our biggest victory with this film is that the response to the fact that people are like, okay, we are digging this. You're not completely there yet, but keep building towards this kind of universe. I think that's what Warner Bros. Needed the most. And I think Justice League 2 will probably do much better when we know that when they know what they're doing, because here's the thing, all these films are in development right now. They're going to start filming 5 different DC movies next year or something like that. This universe is not going to stop anytime soon because of Justice League. And Aquaman is already finished and done. They're in post-production right now. Aquaman is going to come out next December and be a hoot. And then 2019, oh boy, we're going to have a lot of movies in 2019. But I think for this is that the budget for this film was what, $300 million, right?
Something like that. I keep hearing that, yeah. I don't know for sure. But
what would it need to make in order to kind of be like tolerable at least, like 750 or something.
Yeah, I think around there, close to 8 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this for a movie that Warner executives kind of mess up on their own. If they can make at least $750 million at the box office, take it as a victory and be like, you know what, we got a decent box office success, but we also got signs from the critics and fans that this is the universe they want to see. This is the kind of universe this is the kind of tone we need to focus more on, and we will try to stick to it and develop that. And now we also have Jeff Johns being more involved with this. I think that when Justice League and when were happening, I think he was just starting.
Yeah.
And Wonder Woman just happened to do better because I think Patty Jenkins, I think it seems like Warner Bros. Allowed Patty Jenkins and even maybe James Wan to do what they wanted to do. Poor David Ayer had 6 weeks to write a script for Suicide Squad, and that's why it became the film they wanted to. And in the end, it wasn't even his film by the end of the film. So, but yeah, I think that we're on the right path now towards a more because there's been people who enjoy the DCU so far, and there's been people that haven't. But I feel with Justice League, I saw more people being on the same side of in terms of this was fun, this is inspiring, this is a hopeful universe. It feels like the DC universe. I mean, in many ways, this was their DC rebirth. Mm-hmm. Without having to reboot anything, because right now people are just hoping that they're going to use Flashpoint to reboot everything. And I'm like, no, that's not. Here's the thing. Flashpoint is not going to come in and reboot everything they have done already, because there are a lot of things that are already working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just get the feeling that there's no way around it. It had a bad opening weekend, even though 94 million would be a lot for most movies. For a movie like Justice League, it's pretty low. So I just think, at least right now, anyway, Warner Brothers is going to take a step back and to see what they're going to do going forward. I really think we're not going to see a Justice League sequel for a while, just to kind of see how Aquaman does, Wonder Woman 2, just to, I guess have those movies, hopefully do well. And then I think they're just going to take a step back in general from the shared universe thing and just focus on these, not necessarily say that these aren't connected, but just, don't.
They're all the same. They're in the same universe, but it's not like Wonder Woman 2 is going to send
it's not.
Shazam,
but even stuff going forward, like maybe with Shazam or even the Matt Reeves Batman movies, I'm really curious to see if anything's going to change with that as far as it still being in this universe or being part of the that Elseworlds film line they're going to do with the Joker.
That's not what I have heard. I've heard that everything I've heard from Matt Reeves himself and also as well as other places, the Batman is part of this universe.
Yeah, they said that, but I just think now if they're going to do some course corrections with Justice League for not being as successful as they wanted to, and just kind of not have it.
I think any course correcting they might do with Justice League is that they're just going to take their sweet ass time to make a Justice League movie next time.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's the one thing I can't say for sure as far as it's going to go from here.
Here's hoping that Superman brought hope to us all when he came back to life, not only in the fictional world, but also in the future of the DCU.
Yes, because we talked about how Superman came back, but when he was back in that Steppenwolf fight, he was perfect. I mean, it was just
that was so much
Superman
fun.
I think we wanted to see and everyone was wanting to see from the beginning.
For sure.
I like the scene when he pulls away all the mother boxes and he and Victor knock each other back and they just start laughing their asses off. I'm like
it's so good. Yeah.
This was so funny. And again, I feel like I don't think we're in for a whole course correcting thing with the DC. I feel like now I think this is their course correcting in many ways. And I feel like they're gonna
but it wasn't successful, and that's the thing.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: it's already made $278 million in the box office already. So it's like internationally. Here's the thing: it didn't do well at box office in opening weekend. So what? It's not. And here's the thing: here's what's so perfect about it. Thanksgiving is coming up.
Oh,
there's holidays.
Yes,
families will go see this.
Yeah.
So it's in many ways that I think that. Just because it didn't make $600 whatever million in the first 2 weeks, it doesn't mean it's a failure. And again, I mean, it's not going to be Green Lantern bad in the box office because I don't think anything can do that bad. And I mean, again, and it's also interesting. I mean, look who it came from. Not gonna point any names, but people can use IMDb. But post-credit scenes, by the way. Which one was your favorite, and what has you most excited about, from each of those scenes?
Well, the Flash and Superman one was just a great, mid-credit scene just to have a fun moment with a classic DC scenario with between Flash and Superman. It was great to see that get a little nod, but I mean that stroke and Lex Luthor one, it just that's what gets me a little bummed out, where that set the stage up for a really, really awesome Justice League sequel, because that's the one thing we haven't seen in these team up movies, like a team up of superheroes versus a team up of supervillains, and that would make for an amazing Justice League sequel.
No, it's called there was one. It was called Civil War.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna go there.
I'm kidding, Ish. But you know what the beauty is of that though. That post-credits is that they can now use these multiple solo movies. Like, let's say we don't get a Justice League movie till 2020, but we use from now till then to develop all these like supervillains and so on, and that way I feel it will be earned in many ways. So in many ways, even though the box office maybe it's curse and a blessing or whatever, I think the post-credits is a blessing in itself, because now we can really build up to it. So like, in Wonder Woman 2 we might see Cheetah. Yeah. In Aquaman we see Black Manta and Ocean Master. Right. Then in Shazam we see Black. Like I feel it's gonna be more earned. I love the race. I lost my bleep when that happened because I had a feeling that something like that with Lex and after it was gonna happen in the end. But when Barry and Flash are gonna run, I'm like,
it's so cute. It's exactly.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah. Are you kidding me? It's like Christmas already came. This is amazing. But then we didn't get to see who won. But of course, it was probably Superman and this, because this Barry is just not that experienced yet. Now, if it was against Grant Gus's Flash, I think Barry would win.
My thing for that is always I always want Superman to be the one to win, but I think that the only thing that, like, also in swimming in water, like, Aquaman has to be faster than Superman. It's his thing. I feel like running, Barry has to be faster than Superman. It's his thing. Like, those are my only two things. I'm really glad they didn't show who wins, because yes, I think that the Superman would have beat Barry, but I'll give it to Barry. In my brain, like, and if Superman lost, he lost by like a millisecond. It wasn't like much, but it's like enough. It's enough that Barry gets to sort of say he won. I think.
Can I share one nitpick about the Deathstroke post-credit scene?
Go for it.
I didn't like the eye patch.
Oh, really?
What? Okay.
It was really, like, it felt really lazy. And, like,
I didn't even notice.
I don't know. It was just
not anything unique about the eye patch.
Yeah,
it was weirdly shaped.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I'm not
really
saying,
reach it here. It's good. I love it.
I'm not saying. I'm going to send you something in the Skype chat, but like I'm not saying I'm an expert when it comes to eye patches. But for me, it just, I mean, I will say this: the white hair and the white beard and so on looked fantastic. The costume was just phenomenal, but the eye patch was just, I'm like, may he get a new prescription for eye patch or something?
Oh,
I don't know how to.
You just sent us a photo for it, Andy. I love it. I now see what you're talking about. It's like slightly. Well, sure, you're allowed to have that gripe. That's good for you. I understand what you mean.
I mean,
it looks different. I could.
It does.
Yeah, but
it does look different. I don't know if I'm worried about it, but
I'm not worried about it. I just felt it was a little bit lazy. But otherwise, like the very Arkham Asylum looking Deathstroke costume was pretty. That was pretty neat.
Yeah. Well, we know what your biggest concern is going to be for the Deathstroke movie, Andy, is eye patch.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't CGI fixing that iPad, I'm gonna have some major issues.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. So I guess just wrap up the discussion. If we just want to summarize and give our final thoughts on Justice League and just our general impression of, like, I guess what would see. I don't know if you guys a ranking out of 5. What would you give it? So, Andy, I guess we'll start with you. General final closing thoughts, and what would you score
it? I smiled, I cheered, I Justice Leagued. It was, again, it felt like it was pulling from some of the greatest, like Justice League I've seen Justice League for so many years, like in cartoons and comic books and anime movies and so on. And I feel like it had something from all of those aspects. And I feel like it's not the perfect movie, but no movie is perfect. But I feel like this was, I've had 4, out of all the movie experience I've had this year, I had 4 great ones. It was seeing Wonder Woman, Logan, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Justice League. That's not a particular like ranking or anything. It was like those are the 4 movies I love the most in theaters. And just like I just felt like I felt hopeful again, not just about the universe, but also just like in life in general. Like it was a generally great time. It wasn't like a mindless comic book action movie or something like that. It was a generally great ensemble superhero movie that I will definitely rewatch in the theaters, and I will definitely be getting it on Blu-ray. And if there's an extended cut or if there's like an alternate version, I will definitely buy it too. Just saying, Warner Brothers. And I will give it a 4 out of 5.
Cool. How about you, Amanda?
Well, it was a fun romp. It would have. I just wish they would have just told us that Superman was coming back in it so that he could be on advertising, and they didn't have to hide that awesome final shot of all of them standing on the edge of the building. Because the biggest thing is that like it's not Justice League without Superman. I do like that this was just about bringing Superman back, but the fact that they couldn't tell us that until you watched the movie was a little bit weird. But anyways, I'm not delusional about this film. I do only give it 3 out of 5 because I do think it had way more flaws than we've let on in this conversation. So that's my like actual review of it. But like the fan in me gives it 4.5 out of 5 because I really just had a fun time, and that's all I want out of a movie. And there was some sweet fight scenes, and I give it 4 Amazon bras out of 5 Amazon bras, whatever. Anyways, but there's things that are wrong with it, obviously. But I think the things that are fun about it make up for those in a way that I say, go see it, give them your money, tell them that you'll go see this kind of stuff, because I just want more Superman on the big screen. And I think that the way to do that is to support these kinds of films. So if for nothing else but that reason, I think it's worth watching. So
yeah.
I remember you were one of the people on Quiver that was.
What? Ooh, did Andy just cut out?
Yeah, it sounded.
Or is he just? Or did I just stop talking on Quiver?
No, he was talking and then he stopped.
Yeah.
I don't know if we lost Andy.
Well, we lost Andy.
Well,
but I guess I was one of the people that was really critical on Justice League or on Quiver a little bit, but also like wasn't looking forward to it and sort of thought it was going to be terrible. But I also know that like I didn't really change I sort of know what it was and what it was going to be, and it is what it is, and hopefully it's all
yeah.
So we did Andy. We officially lost Andy.
Yeah, I see that the call just dropped. Hopefully we'll get him back, but if not, I'll just go ahead and say my final closing thoughts on it is just that, yeah, I had a great time watching it. I mean, this is almost like a DC fan's dream come true, just seeing all these characters together for the first time on screen. It was just everything I was hoping it would be. They each had their own moments. They worked well together. I thought the story for it was simple, but yet it needed to be simple to spend time with establishing these characters and the team dynamic. So I was okay with that. And yeah, the flaws you mentioned, they're there, but at the same time, when I watched it, I get over it real quickly because I'm just enjoying everything else and seeing these characters interact with each other and have some great character dynamics, cool action sequences. That the good definitely outweighs the bad. So I had a great time watching it. I loved it. There was a few things I would change, but other than that, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. I just had a great time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
all right, so you're up there. I think you and Andy liked it a little bit more on the scale, but I did. It's a good.
You're back, Andy.
Okay,
good.
Good.
Hi, Andy. But yeah,
Peter died.
It's a good. It was a good fun time, and I think we wouldn't be doing a spoiler cast probably if we hated it. We wouldn't want to talk about it for that long. So I assume people
it would have been a much shorter one. Yeah.
are in a similar boat, so that's good.
Yep.
It's awesome.
So Andy, I'm sorry, when you jumped off there, did you do anything you wanted to close with before we lost you?
I don't remember. What did I say? I said something to Amanda, I remember.
Yeah, I'm one of the people on Quiver that does what? So.
Okay. Because I remember you were one of the people on Quiver that was skeptical about Justice League before seeing it. So it did quite. You gotta admit, this movie did quite surprise you, didn't it?
See, this is the thing. Because I was skeptical about it, I put my expectations real low. And as I've mentioned earlier, that bar was met and surpassed. So it's good. And this is the thing, is that sort of it's about, sometimes fans say that like they give their fandoms are like bad boyfriends where you sort of know what you're getting and you forgive them for a lot of things that you probably shouldn't. And from outside the relationship, people are like, why do you let them treat you like that? but then inside of it, you're like, but I love them. And so it's terrible. And I know that's a terrible analogy, especially in this time. But it's like one of those things where I think sometimes it's just really hard to see stuff from inside something. I do love Justice League. I'll forgive it for a lot of its flaws. Yeah. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know. Like, it's probably...
You forgive Arrow for 6 seasons. Right? I think you can forgive Justice League.
And so that's the thing is that like, I know that that's like a really terrible thing, but it is this thing where I'm like, I just love it because I love it, not necessarily because it's good. Right? And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay admitting that. So as my skepticism is still all there, I'm skeptical of the rest of the Justice League movie, or the rest of the like universe that Warner Brothers puts on screen for the DCU, but I will watch them and I will love them because I love DC and I think it's a good fun time and I love these characters, and it's more the fandom and the ethos that goes with them. Like, I like them because of who they are as characters, and I think that sort of, you know, put something on film and I'll enjoy it. So
but do you feel more positive about like the universe?
I feel very positive about the Flash movie. I'm very excited to see that. I think that they're going to get that character really well. I think that if they make a good Cyborg movie, I'll be excited for that. I don't think that the Cyborg movie is going to blow people away in the way that that DC might want it to, but I think it'll be okay. It's just that character needs a little bit of work to become really fleshed out and somebody that fans can really grab onto. And I think Aquaman right now is banking on Jason Momoa a lot as like a, you know, an icon. And I hope that they don't just overuse that too much. I hope they do get at some of this character and things that people really like Aquaman. I don't have a huge history with Aquaman. I don't know that much about him as a character. So I'm just going to go in and have a good time. And they won't really disappoint me. They don't really have the option to disappoint me with an Aquaman movie because I don't have any expectations for that. So I'm hoping that people just start going to these movies and enjoying them for what they are, which is just a good fun time and a little bit of escapism and a way to enjoy, you know, Jason Momoa half naked in an ocean. Like, sure. Good time.
Yeah, we shall see. So, like I said, the future is going to be interesting with DC movies following Justice League, but we'll be there to check them out once they do release. That's for sure. So,
and talk about the map.
Yep, you can definitely count on that. So, that's going to wrap up the spoiler cast for Justice League. Andy, Amanda, thank you for joining me on this one. It was fun to geek out about the movie with you guys. So, before we go, I guess want to give out, you know, any of the contact info where we could find you guys online. Sure. Amanda?
Yeah, so one of the co-hosts of Quiver the Green Arrow podcast with Michael Cohen. You can head on to find us on the internet pretty much everywhere, quiver.com or quiverpodcast.com. Sorry, I'm going to do this wrong. Mike does this part on the podcast, so I never memorize these things. We're also facebook.com/quiverpodcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Quiver Podcast. And you can also follow me individually on Twitter. I'm at Konkin, AKONKIN. You can add an 86 to that for Instagram. So that's where you can find me on the internet and where you can find some more stuff about Quiver Podcast.
Cool. Andy?
People can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram on my public pages at Andy Behbakht. Behbakht is spelled BHBAKHT. I am the co-host of the Flash Podcast and Titans Podcast on the DC Podcast Network. So theflashpodcast.com, titanspodcast.com. You can find all the social media links there. And I also am currently working at the Fanatic doing some fun reviews and stuff like that. And I also run the Marvel Report, which is, for even despite some of the shade I threw Marvel, I am a Marvel fan. So if you like Marvel, the Marvel Universe, you can go to marvelreport.com for all your Marvel fix. And I also, what else do I do? I help run the DC Podcast Network and as a whole. So.
Yeah, and we got the crossover coming up soon too.
Yes. Depending on when this episode comes out, I guess Michael will put this out sometime this week, so I should probably go ahead and just plug it. But on Wednesday, November 29th at 6 p.m. Eastern / no. I'm going to redo that. On Wednesday, November 29th at 9 p.m. Eastern / 6 p.m. Pacific, we're going to be doing our annual podcast crossover between Quiver the Green Arrow Podcast, the Flash Podcast, Supergirl Radio, and Let Us Tomorrow Podcast, as we're going to be covering the 4-show crossover between Arrow, the Flash, Supergirl, and Let Us Tomorrow called Crisis on Earth X. So if you want to listen to it live, we're going to be doing a live podcast crossover on mixer.com/DC podcast, and where you can participate in the live chat, give us all your questions, your feedback, and your thoughts about the crossover, because we love doing those podcast crossovers together. Like they're not easy to plan out, but we do it because for you guys. So and I know, Amanda, you said you you maybe beat her?
I'm gonna try to do it. Yeah. I have a few work things that are I'm hoping to get done this week, but it might be next Wednesday. So, but I mean, Mike will be there for representing Quiver, and talking a little bit about the Arrowverse on that. And we'll obviously do our weekly Quiver podcast as well. So it'll just be a bonus podcast, and hopefully I'll be able to join you for that. So, yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. So yeah, but that's all my plugs.
All right, cool. Yeah, and for me, you can follow me on Twitter at TimG311, where I'll probably be talking about Justice League for a while for everyone.
Yeah,
but,
nice.
That's only a good thing.
And then you can follow my Star Wars podcast, Star Wars: The Saga Continues. I mean, we got the Justice League movie, and then we're just a month away now from Star Wars: The Last Jedi. How great is this month going to be? So things are so awesome right now in the geek world when we get movies like this. So. But as always,
is Star Wars still a thing? Like I heard it went out of business like a year ago.
Oh, Andy. Okay, this podcast is officially over now.
And I guess if you are listening to the Spoilercast, this is a Patreon thing, right, for ThunderQuack supporters?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that I never quite know, right? So thank you to all the ThunderQuack Patreon supporters that are listening to us. And lots of content we delivered. I love that Mike promised content in the month of November, and we have delivered content in the month of November, which is exciting to make up for some lackluster months in the past. But obviously, you can find stuff for ThunderQuack. I'm sorry, Tim, I'm taking this from you, but
No,
I'll say it because I never get to say it. Mike says all this stuff on the podcast. So ThunderQuack.com for more information about the ThunderQuack Podcast Network, and where you can find more information about Patreon if for some reason you're listening to this and you are not a Patreon subscriber, because it's a pretty sweet deal. You get lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
At least.
Yeah, you can find that at patreon.com/ThunderQuack. So with that's going to do it. So thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Peace. Come together.